Jason Keller didn't plan on breaking up a fight in the middle of a grocery store parking lot, especially not with his 6-year-old daughter clinging to his hand and a bag of discount cereal tucked under his arm. But when he heard the sharp voice of a woman yelling, "Get your hands off me," he didn't hesitate. "Stay here, Kenzie," he told his daughter, gently guiding her behind a nearby car. Her brown eyes widened, but she nodded. He dropped the cereal on the hood and strode toward the shouting. Two men stood far too close to a woman near the back of a black SUV. She wore a sleek beige coat, her dark hair messy from the scuffle, and her heels looked more suited for a boardroom than a parking lot. One man reached for her arm again. Jason didn't give him the chance. "Hey," his voice boomed as he stepped between them. "Step back, now." The aggressors turned. One was broad-shouldered, clearly not expecting resistance. "This isn't your business, man." Jason's jaw tightened. "It is now." The woman's eyes locked with his, stunning, wide, and furious, but not at him. She was scared, but holding it together. The taller guy lunged forward, and Jason reacted fast. Years of working construction, being a single dad, and surviving too many bar fights when he was younger had taught him a thing or two. He shoved the man back with a hard forearm, just enough to knock him off balance. The other guy stepped forward, but the woman shouted, "Security's coming." That did the trick. Both men hesitated, cursed, and backed off, muttering threats as they retreated toward a beat-up pickup. Jason turned back to the woman. "Are you okay?" She nodded slowly, eyes still fixed on the retreating truck. "Yes, thanks to you." Jason exhaled, his knuckles ached. "You sure?" "I'll be fine," she glanced past him. "Is that your daughter?" Jason followed her gaze. Kenzie peeked out from behind the car, clutching her pink backpack. "Yeah, I didn't mean to drag her into this," he said. "I just couldn't walk away." The woman finally smiled. "I'm glad you didn't." She stepped closer and held out her hand. "I'm Kiera Wallace." He shook it. "Jason Keller." "Jason," she repeated, as if trying it out. "You just saved me from a very bad situation." He shrugged. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," she said, "they wouldn't." He didn't have a reply for that. Kiera gave him one last look, then turned to open her car door. It was a sleek black Mercedes SUV. Nice. Too nice for this neighborhood. She paused. "You live around here?" "Couple blocks over. Why?" She hesitated. "No reason, just thank you again." Jason nodded and watched as she slid into her car and drove off. He grabbed Kenzie's hand, heart still racing. "You okay, bug?" Kenzie grinned. "You were like a superhero." Jason chuckled, ruffling her hair. "Let's go home, superhero sidekick. I've got spaghetti to burn." Jason didn't expect to see her again, not in this part of town. But 3 days later, she walked into the diner he worked at, same beige coat, same confidence, though now paired with jeans and a white blouse. She slid into a booth like she owned the place. He nearly dropped the pitcher of coffee in his hand. "Dad," whispered Kenzie from the booth near the back where she did her homework after school. "It's the lady." Jason cleared his throat and walked over. "Kiera." She looked up. "Jason." He blinked. "What are you doing here?" "I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd grab a coffee, and maybe say thank you again." He raised a brow. "You drove a Mercedes into this neighborhood for coffee." She smiled. "I like to be thorough." He laughed. "All right, coffee coming right up." As he poured her a cup, she glanced toward the back. "Is that your daughter again?" "Yeah, Kenzie. She usually hangs here after school while I finish my shift." "You're raising her alone?" Jason nodded. "Her mom left when she was 2, it's just us." Kiera looked genuinely affected by that. "She's lucky to have you." He shrugged. "I'm the lucky one, she keeps me grounded." There was a pause. "You were really brave in that parking lot," she said softly. "I was just doing the right thing." "That's rare." Jason rubbed the back of his neck, unsure how to respond. He wasn't used to compliments, especially not from women like her, polished, confident, clearly out of his league. "You ever need a refill," he said, changing the subject, "you know where to find me." She smiled but didn't push. "I might take you up on that." She came back again the next week, and the next. Sometimes for coffee, sometimes for lunch, always alone, always sitting in Jason's section. And every time, she talked to him like he wasn't just the guy refilling her mug. Like she saw him, really saw him. He didn't know her life, but he could feel it. There was something about her. Her words were precise. Her presence was commanding. She wasn't just someone with money. She was used to power. One afternoon, curiosity got the better of him. "So what do you do exactly?" She hesitated. "I run a company." "What kind of company?" "Tech, software, security systems." He blinked, like you're in charge. "I'm the CEO, she said, sipping her tea. Jason stared. "Wait, like the actual CEO. Kiera tilted her head. "Would it be weird if I said yes?" He let out a breath, a little. She laughed. "I figured. You don't, seem like the type to hang out in diners." "I don't," she looked directly at him, "but I like this one." Jason wasn't dumb. He could feel it now. That spark between them wasn't just in his head. And then her hand brushed his when he set down her plate. He froze. She didn't pull away. Jason cleared his throat. "Kiera." "I know," she interrupted softly. "It's crazy, but I feel it too." He glanced toward the back where Kenzie was coloring. "My life's complicated." "So is mine," she said, "but maybe that's okay." He didn't answer, not yet. But something shifted that day. Something real. Jason adjusted the strap on Kenzie's backpack as the late afternoon sun dipped behind the row of buildings lining Main Street. The sidewalk was cracked and uneven, and the streetlights hadn't kicked in yet, but she skipped beside him like the entire world was made of cotton candy and chalk drawings. "Can we get the purple ice cream today?" she asked, eyes wide beneath her sun-faded baseball cap. Jason glanced at the corner store window, where a faded sign promised homemade Yube soft serve. He reached into his back pocket, felt the folded bills tips from the early shift, and hesitated. "Half a scoop," he said. Her whoop echoed down the street. As they reached the storefront, a black Lexus pulled up to the curb. Sleek, but not flashy. The tinted window rolled down. Kiera leaned over from the driver's seat, her hair pulled into a low twist, sunglasses resting atop her head. "Need a ride?" Jason blinked. "You stalking me now?" Kiera's lips curved. "Only if you consider being in a public street at the exact same time as you a federal offense." Kenzie darted up beside him. "It's the fancy lady." Kiera leaned an elbow on the window frame. "Hi, Kenzie." Jason looked between them. "We were just grabbing some ice cream." Kiera opened her door. "Mind if join?" He couldn't think of a good reason to say no. Inside the shop, the narrow layout forced them close together. Kiera bent slightly to Kenzie's level. "What's your favorite flavor?" "Purple," Kenzie declared confidently. Jason added, "She means Yube. Don't ask me where she picked that up." "It's the best," Kenzie insisted. Kiera studied the menu. "I'll take the same. Trust your taste." Jason paid before Kiera could pull out her wallet. She raised an eyebrow, but didn't argue. Outside, they sat on the edge of a planter box beneath a flickering neon sign. Kiera balanced her cone delicately, watching the sun sink lower. Jason licked his, then asked, So what's a CEO doing cruising through downtown on a Wednesday? She brushed a drip from her thumb. I had a board meeting this morning, needed air after. Rough meeting. Packed with men twice my age, trying to explain my own numbers to me. Jason whistled low. Sounds like a party. Kiera tilted her head. You ever feel like people only see what they expect to see? He didn't answer right away. He knew the weight of that question. Every day, he said finally, they see a guy in a diner apron and think that's the whole story. Kiera nodded slowly. Exactly. Kenzie interrupted by accidentally dropping a chunk of cone onto her jeans. Jason handed her a napkin from his back pocket without missing a beat. Kiera watched the exchange in silence. Later, as they walked back toward the car, Kiera matched Jason's pace. You're good with her. She keeps me honest. Kiera stopped beside the car. I have to ask, what did you want to be when you were younger? Jason blinked. That's random. I'm curious. He rubbed the back of his neck. I wanted to build houses, not just hammer nails, but design them, make something solid, real. Why didn't you? Life, but he didn't say that. Had to prioritize other things. Kiera looked at him for a long moment. If you ever wanted to try again, I know people in that world. Jason shook his head. I'm not looking for favors. It's not a favor, it's a door. You choose if you walk through it. He looked at her, really looked. The polished edges, the calm control, the way she never once treated him like a charity project. You always talk like that. Like what? Like you're 10 steps ahead of everyone else. Kiera laughed, only when I'm nervous. He raised an eyebrow. You, nervous. I don't usually eat ice cream with strangers' kids. Stranger, he repeated. She met his gaze, not for much longer. Jason didn't know what to say to that. So he didn't. He just opened the door for her, watched her slide behind the wheel, and waited until the car disappeared down the avenue before turning back toward their apartment. Kenzie tugged his hand. Is she gonna be your girlfriend? Jason exhaled. I have no idea. The next evening, he found a small white envelope taped to the front door of the diner. No return address, just his name printed in clean, looping script. Inside was a single business card, black, embossed, no logo, just a name and a number. Kiera Wallace. On the back, a handwritten note. Dinner, Friday, my treat. He turned the card over in his hand, heart thudding for reasons that had nothing to do with the invitation. He wasn't ready. But God, he wanted to be. Friday arrived faster than he expected. He borrowed a blazer from his neighbor, found a button-down shirt that still fit, and left Kenzie with the older woman across the hall who adored her and had already promised popcorn and cartoons. The restaurant was in a part of the city he hadn't visited since his early 20s. The valet took his borrowed car keys without blinking. Inside, white tablecloths glowed beneath golden pendant lights, and the wine list looked like it weighed more than his toolbox. Kiera stood as he approached their table, wearing a midnight blue dress that made the room blur around her. Jason stopped cold. You clean up all right. Her eyes sparked. You're not so bad yourself. They sat. The waiter poured water as if it were champagne. Jason glanced around. You sure we won't get kicked out for not ordering the caviar? Kiera leaned in. You're with me. No one's kicking you out. He studied her, then leaned back. All right then, surprise me. She smiled and closed the menu. I was hoping you'd say that. 2 courses in, the conversation flowed easier. They talked about architecture, about leadership, about how hard it was to be taken seriously when you didn't look the part. But then Kiera set down her fork and looked at him differently. "There's something else," she said. "I didn't just invite you here because of the other night." Jason waited. "I've had people protect me before, but never without asking what they'd get in return." Jason's jaw tightened slightly. "That's not how I work." "I know," she said. "That's why I'm here." He didn't know what to do with that, the honesty, the weight of it. So he reached for his glass and said the only thing that made sense. "Then, guess we're both in new territory." Kiera raised her glass to uncharted ground. Their glasses clinked softly. And for the first time in a long time, Jason Keller felt like something was beginning. Jason stepped into the penthouse and immediately regretted wearing boots. The doorman had insisted on escorting him up after his name was checked on some kind of digital guest list. He'd never seen a building like this: glass walls, black marble floors, and a chandelier stretching the full height of the lobby like a frozen waterfall. He half expected someone to hand him a tuxedo on arrival. But it wasn't the building that made him feel out of place, it was where he was headed. Kiera's home. He debated whether to come for over an hour, pacing his small apartment while Kenzie was at her weekend playdate. The invitation had arrived that morning, handwritten and precise, tucked into a sleek white envelope slid under the diner's office door. No time, no instructions, just, "Come see where I live." No pressure. Kiera. Now, standing inside a foyer bigger than his entire living room, Jason felt the pressure anyway. The door opened before he could knock. "I was hoping you'd show." Kiera leaned against the frame, barefoot, wearing a slate gray blouse that draped loosely over her jeans. She looked entirely different here, softer, less calculated. Real. Jason rubbed the back of his neck. "Didn't know if I'd need a security clearance to get in." She stepped aside. "You're funny, come on." He followed her into a space that didn't look like anyone lived in it. Floor-to-ceiling windows, framed city skyline, polished wood floors that didn't creak, and furniture that probably had names he couldn't pronounce. "You live here alone?" he asked, scanning the space. "Sometimes it feels like I don't live here at all," she said. "I'm always working." Jason paused near a tall steel sculpture that looked like it belonged in a museum. "This place looks like a showroom." Kiera crossed to the kitchen and poured 2 glasses of water. "That's the problem. I built my life like a brand, but lately I've been wondering if I left out the parts that matter." Jason took the glass she handed him. "That why you keep showing up in my world?" "Maybe," she leaned against the counter, "or maybe your world feels more real than mine." They stood in silence a moment, the city glowing behind her like a backdrop. Jason finally said, "You didn't bring me here just to show me the view." Kiera's eyes flicked toward him. "No, I wanted you to see the difference." "Between what?" "Between what I have and what I want." Jason's pulse kicked up. "What's the difference?" "You and your daughter, and that diner, and the way I feel when I'm not pretending everything's perfect." He took a breath, unsure where to put his hands. "That's a lot to put on someone." "I know," she stepped closer, "but I'm not asking you to fix me. I just want to see where this goes, without pretending." Jason stared at her. "You're not used to asking, are you?" "No," she admitted, "but I'm learning." His voice dropped. "You sure you're ready for what comes with me?" "I'm not afraid of hard. I'm afraid of fake." Jason set down his glass. "Then maybe we've both been looking in the wrong places." Kiera's hand brushed his, tentative but deliberate. "Stay, just for a while." He nodded once. Later, they sat on the floor near the window, legs stretched out, the city far below. She told him about her first investment pitch at 23, how no one took her seriously until she started wearing heels tall enough to make men look up. He told her about the first night Kenzie had a fever and he didn't know what to do, how he'd sat in the ER holding her hand, pretending he wasn't terrified. They didn't touch again, but something shifted between them. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. Jason glanced at the time and stood. "I should head out. Kenzie's expecting me." Kiera walked him to the door. "Will you come back?" He hesitated. "If you want me to." "I do." He reached for the doorknob, then paused. "This thing, whatever it is, it doesn't work if we're not honest." "I know." Jason turned to face her fully. "You've got your world, I've got mine, but if we're going to try this, I need to know you're in it, not just when it's convenient." Kiera's voice was low. "I'm in it, even when it's messy." He nodded once, then left. The next evening, Jason returned home from the diner to find a small box wedged into his mailbox. Inside was a folded blueprint on crisp parchment paper. No note, just a sketch of a modest one-story house, clean lines and wide porches. His name was written in the bottom corner, and beside it, in smaller handwriting, "Let's build something." Jason stared at the blueprint for a long time, heart thudding in a way that had nothing to do with architecture. He didn't know where this was going, but for the first time in years, he wanted to find out. And he wasn't walking into it alone. Jason adjusted the collar of his shirt as the elevator climbed steadily, the hum low and constant. Beside him, Kenzie clutched a small paper gift bag with both hands, the top decorated with a glittery sticker in the shape of a star. "She's gonna like it, right?" Kenzie whispered, eyes wide. Jason glanced down. "You made it yourself. That makes it better than anything money could buy." Kenzie nodded solemnly, then shifted closer as the elevator dinged softly and the doors slid open to reveal polished glass walls and a soft hallway lined with abstract art. Jason had never brought Kenzie here before Kiera's penthouse, but she'd insisted tonight was different. It was the first time they were coming as a family. The door was already open when they reached it. Kiera stood in the entryway, her face lighting up in a way Jason hadn't seen before, warm, unguarded, quietly thrilled. "You're here," she said, her eyes moving from Jason to Kenzie. Kenzie stepped forward, holding the bag out in both hands. "I made you a candle. It's vanilla." Kiera crouched to take it, her expression soft as she examined the uneven wax and handwritten label that read, for Kiera, in purple marker. "This is the most thoughtful gift I've ever received." Kenzie beamed, then wandered toward the living room where a stack of books and a small art set waited on the coffee table. Jason stepped inside, his voice low. "You didn't have to do all that." "I wanted to." Kiera's gaze lingered on him. "This is the first time I've had someone in this space who actually matters." Jason looked around. The penthouse felt different with children's books on the floor and a blanket draped over the back of the couch. Less like a monument to success, more like a home. Kiera led him to the kitchen, where a meal had been set out, nothing extravagant, just roasted chicken, vegetables, and a loaf of warm bread on a wooden board. The scent filled the space in a way that made Jason's chest tighten. "I cooked," she said before he could ask. "Don't look so surprised." "I didn't know CEOs used ovens," he teased. She leaned a hip against the counter. "Only when it counts." They ate together, the three of them, laughter breaking up the quiet moments. Kiera asked about Kenzie's school project, listened closely, and even let her explain the rules of a game Jason didn't understand himself. For the first time in a long time, Jason wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. He wasn't calculating what came next or how long it would last. After dinner, while Kenzie painted quietly at the table, Kiera pulled Jason aside to the balcony. The sky was streaked with navy and gold, the city glittering beneath them like a sea of stars. "I've been thinking about something," Kiera said, arms folded, her tone more serious now. Jason turned to her. "Yeah." I'm restructuring the company, she said. Scaling back the travel, cutting out the noise. I've been chasing something for so long, I forgot to ask why. Jason studied her. You don't owe me an explanation. I'm not doing it for you, she said. I'm doing it because I want to be present for my own life. I want something real, something grounded. He leaned against the railing. I don't know what this is yet, but I know it matters. It does, she said. That's why I'm making space for it. Jason looked at her, the wind lifting strands of her hair. You sure you're ready for that kind of change? I've already started, she said. Offered my COO the interim position. I'll still be involved, but from here. I want roots, not just reach. Jason didn't respond right away. He let the moment sit between them, heavy in the best way. Then he said, I got offered a foreman position. Her eyebrows lifted. Really? Yeah, a friend from an old job called. Said they've got a project starting next month. It's not design work, but it's more stable. Better hours, benefits. Kiera stepped closer. What are you going to do? I'm going to take it, he said, because I want to build something that lasts, for Kenzie and maybe for us too. Her hand found his, fingers threading together. Good, because I don't want to do this halfway. Jason looked at her, then let's not. She leaned up to kiss him, gentle, certain, and quiet, a kiss that didn't ask for anything. It simply promised everything. Inside, Kenzie yawned and stretched her arms overhead, paintbrush still in hand. Kiera smiled. Come on, I'll show her the guest room. Jason watched them disappear down the hallway together, something settling deep in his chest. A quiet peace, a certainty he hadn't felt in years. Later that night, as he tucked Kenzie into bed in the spare room now filled with soft blue sheets and a stuffed rabbit she'd been gifted, she whispered, Are we gonna stay here forever? He brushed a hand through her hair. Maybe not forever, but we'll be here a lot. She nodded sleepily. I like her. I do too, he said. When he returned to the living room, Kiera was waiting. She handed him a folded piece of paper. What's this? Something I've been working on, she said. Thought you might want to take a look. Jason unfolded it. It was a blueprint, not of a skyscraper, not of a mansion. A modest 2-bedroom house, open layout, wide porch, enough space for a backyard swing. He looked up. What is this? Our future, she said, if you want it. Jason didn't answer with words. He stepped forward, wrapped an arm around her waist, and kissed her again, this time not a promise, but a decision. They'd found something in each other neither of them had expected. Not perfection, not rescue. Just someone who saw them, chose them. And this time, neither of them was walking away. Jason stood on the edge of the cleared lot, boots sinking slightly into the soft dirt. Behind him, the early spring sun filtered through rows of budding maples, casting long golden shadows across the newly marked foundation lines. He turned at the sound of approaching tires on gravel. A sleek black SUV rolled to a quiet stop near the temporary work trailer, and the passenger door opened. Kiera stepped out, dressed in a forest green utility jacket over a cream blouse, her boots dusted from the short walk. She carried a box tucked under one arm, unlabeled, plain, and tied with jute twine. Jason met her halfway, brushing sawdust from his hands. You're early. You said you'd show me the site, she said. Figured I'd bring a housewarming gift. He raised a brow. Bit early for that, don't you think? Kiera glanced at the stakes lining the perimeter of the lot. You've got the bones of something beautiful. That's enough for me. Jason took the box as she handed it over. Inside was a pair of ceramic mugs, handmade with rough edges and glazed in dark blue. One read Builder, the other CEO. Nestled between them was a folded blueprint, her handwriting scrawled in the margins with ideas for a vegetable garden and a porch swing. He looked back up. You drew in a sandbox. You'll need one, she said. Kenzie already asked. He laughed, genuine and unfiltered. You're really in this, aren't you? I'm not backing out now. Besides, her fingers brushed his wrist. It's easier to make plans when I know who I'm building them with. They walked the perimeter together, Jason pointing out where the kitchen would be, where the windows would catch the sunset. Kiera didn't interrupt. She just listened, occasionally suggesting a detail or asking a quiet question. When they reached the far corner, where the trees opened up to a sloping meadow, Jason stopped. I thought about putting a treehouse up there, he said. Something simple, just big enough for Kenzie to read in. Kiera folded her arms, watching the horizon. She'll love that, have you told her? Not yet, I wanted to be sure. She glanced sideways, and are you? Jason didn't answer right away, then he turned to face her fully. I've spent so long trying to make the next step feel safe, but it's not about safety, is it? It's about choosing what matters, even when it scares the hell out of you. Kiera's voice was steady. Then choose me. I already did. They stood there, the wind lifting her hair slightly, the scent of fresh-cut lumber drifting from the truck bed. She leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her waist, holding her close. Later that week, Jason surprised her with a visit to her office, her old office, now occupied by her newly promoted COO. The building's lobby was all clean lines and chrome, but Jason walked through it like he belonged, Kenzie's drawing tucked into his back pocket. Kiera met him in the cafe on the ground floor, where she'd started spending more time mentoring instead of managing. You're on my turf, she teased, sliding into the seat across from him. I figured it was my turn to interrupt your day. He handed her the drawing. It showed a stick figure version of Kiera sitting on a bench beside two smaller figures, Kenzie and Jason, with a house in the background and a big blue heart over all three. She said it's her forever picture, Jason said quietly. Thought you should have it. Kiera blinked a few times, then carefully folded the paper and tucked it into her leather folio. I'm keeping that forever. He reached across the table, taking her hand. You didn't just change your life, you changed ours. You did the same, she said, her voice soft. That weekend, they hosted a dinner in the small courtyard behind their temporary rental. Folding tables, mismatched chairs, fairy lights strung between trees. Jason grilled while Kiera poured wine and passed around plates. Friends from both their worlds came: contractors, board members, neighbors, and Kiera's assistant, who'd become so close with Kenzie, she now babysat her during site meetings. As the night wore on, Kiera stepped onto the makeshift platform they'd built from leftover pallets and cleared her throat. The crowd quieted. I spent years thinking love had to wait until everything else was perfect, she said, voice clear. But then someone taught me that maybe love is what makes everything else worth building. She turned to Jason, her hand reaching for his. You didn't just rescue me in a parking lot, you reminded me what it means to live. Jason's voice was steady as he answered. And you reminded me that home isn't just where you build, it's who you build it with. The applause was warm and genuine, but Jason barely heard it. His world was already focused on the woman beside him, the daughter laughing in the grass, the life they were shaping together, one beam, one brick, one promise at a time. A year later, the house was finished. It sat nestled at the edge of the woods, sunlight spilling across the front steps each morning. The porch swing creaked lazily whenever the breeze picked up, and the garden out back was already full of green shoots and early blooms. Inside, Kiera stirred a pot of soup while Jason helped Kenzie with her homework at the kitchen table, pencil tapping against the page as she spelled out words one careful letter at a time. The dining room wall held a framed version of Kenzie's drawing, now surrounded by photos. The groundbreaking, the first time Kiera wore flannel at the site, Kenzie's birthday party with a treehouse in the background. No one looking at those pictures would ever guess how far each of them had come. Jason set down the pencil and watched Kiera cross the room. She pressed a kiss to his temple. "Dinner's ready." He caught her hand and pulled her gently onto his lap. "So are we," he said, voice low, "for all of it." Kiera looked around the room, the scattered crayons, the open window letting in the smell of fresh earth, the family they'd built from nothing but trust and tenacity. "I never thought I'd say it," she whispered, "but this is everything I never knew I needed." Jason kissed her, slow and certain, surrounded by the warmth of their home. And in that moment, with Kiera in his arms and Kenzie humming in the background, there was nothing left to want, only everything to keep. Forever,